This chapter was insane. Now, as just a quick recap, chapter 248 ended off with Yuta finally jumping into the battle against Sukuna, and then the final pages we're talking about the clash between the Queen of Curses, Rika, up against the King of Curses, Sukuna himself. The chapter actually begins with a flashback to when Yuta chopped off Kenjaku's head, and we finally got to see what ended up happening to Kenjaku. So as soon as Yuta chopped off Kenjaku's head, all of his cursed spirits that he had been storing up inside of him went completely loose, which required Rika to handle the rampaging cursed spirits. And then we saw Kenjaku still alive, even though he was beheaded, and having his head carried away by one of the cursed spirits. And it's actually revealed that he was the one who added in the rule for Megumi to have the authority to activate the merger between humanity and Tengen last chapter. Last chapter, we assumed that it was Sukuna who added the rule, but in reality, it was Kenjaku. And Kenjaku even tells Yuta that he had already created a backup plan and finished the ritual of inheritance with Sukuna. And as soon as Kenjaku informs Yuta of his backup plan, Yuta finally stabs Kenjaku's brain, thus killing him. And Kenjaku's final words were talking about how he was glad that Takaba was his final opponent, but then he says that Takaba may have been fun, but he was not 1,000 years worth of fun. And in that moment, Kenjaku finally died. After Kenjaku's death, we go back to the major fight between Yuta and Sukuna. The fight we have all been waiting for. And Yuta notices that Sukuna's reverse curse technique is actually slowly healing, and that Sukuna might actually be able to start using his own domain expansion once again. And Yuta actually blames himself for everything that is happening right now. And he says that he should have actually joined the fight with Sukuna sooner instead of going to deal with Kenjaku first. He mentions how Maki could have been the one to deal with Kenjaku, meanwhile he went and fought Sukuna. And he even mentions how Higuruma is now dead, meaning their chances against Sukuna have dropped significantly due to Higuruma's domain expansion no longer being a factor within the fight. However, Yuta reassures himself that it had to be him to stop Kenjaku, and the fight between Yuta and Sukuna officially begins. Yuta tries swinging his sword at Sukuna, but Sukuna actually catches it, and Yuta realizes that Sukuna is not really holding the sword, but instead he is using his slash technique in order to create a chainsaw around his arm in order to not touch Yuta's sword. And Yuta, realizing this, decides to let go of his sword and just straight up punch Sukuna, which Sukuna manages to catch and deflect. And that's when Yuta and Sukuna enter a momentary clash where Yuta says that he blames himself for everything that's happened, and he realizes that he has to finish this fight now. And that's when he utters the words, domain expansion.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Calm!
Wait.
Everybody just calm down!
Yuta is able to open up his domain titled True and Mutual Love. And from the inside of the domain, we can see that the ground is covered in katanas, and there are 2 crosses within the domain. So off rip, we can already see that this is one of the most eerie domains within the entire series, considering that the entire floor is just covered with katanas, which actually reminds me of Ichigo's Zanpakuto training. And then there are just 2 crosses within the domain, and I think those crosses alone already make this domain eerie enough. So Yuta 100% takes the cake for the creepiest domain expansion. However, after Yuta activates his domain, Sukuna instantaneously activates Hollow Wicker Basket, which, for those of you who don't remember, is the original version of Simple Domain, and is supposed to negate the sure hit effect of domain expansion. However, unfortunately for Sukuna, his Hollow Wicker Basket proves to be useless because Yuta is able to break it with the technique he copied from Uro within the Colon games when he was 2v1ing both Ryu and Uro, that being Thin Icebreaker. And using it, he was able to just completely shatter Sukuna's Hollow Wicker Basket. And in doing so, he actually managed to damage a bit of Sukuna's face, which is probably one of the best feats we've seen from any other characters besides Gojo. Yuta then straight up tells Sukuna that he will put in everything inside his domain. And Sukuna actually is able to access Megumi's memories and says that Yuta is the one with spirit possession and realizes that his curse technique is the copy technique. And it's here where we learn what Yuta'S domain expansion sure hit ability may actually be. And from everything we've gathered in this chapter, it's probably Yuta being able to constantly attack Sukuna with an unlimited amount of copy attacks from other curse techniques, which is only possible within his own domain expansion. Now, a lot of you might not see the difference between that and his regular copy technique, so let me explain it. Basically, with his regular copy technique, Yuta has either a time limit or can only use a certain amount of copy techniques before he runs out of cursed energy. But it seems like within his domain expansion, he is able to just spam copy technique after copy technique after copy technique. So, what techniques could Yuta have that would possibly defeat Sukuna? I'm predicting that Yuta has Angel's Curse technique, considering that Angel's Curse technique was one of the curse techniques that did the most damage to Sukuna and actually almost took him out. I would personally say that Sukuna took more damage from Angel than he did from Gojo himself. And right after all of this is when Yuji Itadori himself enters Yuta'S domain to 2v1 Sukuna. And it's explained that Yuji will be the one who will deal the finishing blow to Sukuna and will use his ability to capture the soul with his strikes to rip apart Sukuna from Megumi's body. And Sukuna tells Yuji and mocks him by saying, "Good for you, you have finally got yourself a role." And the chapter ends right there. So we have seen and learned a lot from this one chapter alone. First things first, I really hope Kenjaku is not actually dead, because if he is, that is going to be a major letdown for me. I mean, Kenjaku planned this entire thing for 1,000 years, so for him to get defeated by a sneak attack feels kind of disappointing to me. But from what it looks like, it seems like Kenjaku is actually dead, considering that Yuta straight up stabbed his head, and we know that Kenjaku is the brain. So things are not looking good for Kenjaku. Hopefully it's not wasted, but it seems like Sukuna is all we have left to deal with now. We also obviously saw Yuta'S domain, which I explained throughout the video, and this domain perfectly suits Yuta. I was expecting something a lot more grand, a lot more powerful. However, this domain does make sense for Yuta'S abilities, and it's pretty overpowered when you think about it. So I can't say that I'm too disappointed regarding Yuta'S domain. But another new key piece of information we learned was that it was actually confirmed. Yuji's ability is to just straight up capture the soul with his attacks, which is going to be the saving grace for Megumi. One thing I am disappointed about, though, is the fact we still haven't seen Maki. It makes no sense for Maki not to have jumped into this battle already. Even if she jumps in at this point, I'm really having a hard time seeing what role she would possibly fill that any other characters such as Yuta or Yuji can't. As for my predictions for next chapter, I'm predicting that Yuta and Yuji are just going to straight up 2v1 Sukuna. Sukuna is going to be struggling for the entire chapter. However, at the very end of the chapter, Sukuna is probably going to pull something out that will completely flip the tables on them, and Yuta will probably leave the fight with fatal injuries, causing Yuji and Sukuna to have their fated 1v1 battle. Hopefully, I'm wrong about the Yuta part, but something tells me Yuta is not going to walk away from this fight in one piece. Anyways, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about these leaks and what you guys think is going to happen in the next chapter. I'm really looking forward to reading all of your comments, and hopefully I see you all on the next one. Have a good night.